1. I work night audit at an upscale hotel downtown in a city in North Carolina. On the overnight shift, we always have a night auditor, me, a security guard, whose jurisdiction is technically the apartments that occupy the upper floors of the building, and a valet for guest cars. Last night at about 2:30 a.m., a guy wearing only boxer shorts gets off the elevator and, instead of heading to the front desk, tries to force his way into the security office. When the door won't open, he turns around and heads down the hall to the front desk. The security guard follows closely behind. I look up from this very sight, and a mostly naked dude is wandering around my lobby. He's mumbling to himself and a little incoherent, but doesn't seem drunk. While trying to get his attention, a man gets off the elevator with 2 dogs. In his rush to pursue naked guy, the security guard didn't put on a mask. Dog guy starts yelling at the security guard about not wearing a mask. Security guard ignores dog guy while trying to get naked guy's attention and figure out what his whole deal is. Dog guy keeps escalating the situation instead of taking his dogs outside and away from anyone not wearing a mask. At this point, the valet, for whom it was her first night shift by herself, wanders over to see what the commotion is all about, but fortunately has enough sense to just watch and let this play out. Now a woman gets off the elevator with her dog, and dog guy's dogs go bananas. I interject at this point and yell for everyone with a dog to go outside. The woman, who is one of the residents of the building, does so, but dog guy turns his attention to me. "You're supposed to wear a mask!" "I am wearing a mask. Please take your dogs outside now." "Well, he isn't," pointing to the security guard. "Correct. Please take your dogs outside now." "My dogs are fine." His dogs are still barking, and he is yanking on their leashes so hard that the smaller one is yelping every time. "Sir, please take your dogs outside or back to your room now." Dog guy takes his dogs outside. Naked guy, remember him? Comes up to the front desk, and I ask him for his name. He gives me his name and room number. Since he doesn't have ID on him, I'm assuming, and if he does, I don't want to hold it to verify it, I ask him to verify the last 4 digits of the credit card we have on file and his address, both of which he gives me with no hesitation. So I cut him a new key and send him on his way. Now dog guy is coming back inside, and instead of going up to his room, makes a beeline for the security guard, who by this point is wearing a mask, and demanding his name, which the security guard refuses to give. Remember that the guard works for the apartments on floors 7 to 19, not the hotel on floors 1 to 6, and has absolutely no obligation to this guy. Dog guy once again turns his attention to me. "He won't give me his name." I'm glad he can't see the smirk behind my mask. "Who?" "The security guard. What's his name?" "If he doesn't wish to disclose that, it's his prerogative, sir. Please take your dogs upstairs now." "What's your name?" "I'm Dr. Blank 76. "What's your last name?" "I am the only Dr. Blank 76 who works here. That's enough for anyone to know who you're talking about. If my last name was on my name tag, I would have shared it, but it's not, so as far as I'm concerned, it's none of our guests' business what my last name is." "He's supposed to be wearing a mask." "He is wearing a mask. Please take your dogs upstairs now." "My name is Dog Guy. Look me up. I've been staying here for 10 years. "The hotel has only been open 6 years. "Okay." "Tomorrow I'm going to talk to Todd, the GSM, and Sally, the FOM. "I'll tell him to expect your call. Have a good night." Dog Guy grumbles to himself and finally heads upstairs. This guy stays with us about every month or so. Always wears down whoever takes his reservation to get a discounted rate, and then demands a free suite upgrade upon arrival. If he can't get an upgrade, he complains about stuff until we give him a further discount. He's lucky I only work audit, because I would tell him the rate's the rate, and if he doesn't want to pay it, here's the number of the hotel up the street. 2. Let's see, with my resort hitting the big centennial milestone, maybe the resident ghost Billy just wants to mess with us and create chaos, who knows. I don't even know what day it is anymore. Okay, my manager just told me it was Valentine's Day, and when I gave her a blank look, she elaborated that it was Sunday, so there's that. Currently, our pools are sitting at 25% capacity, and as anyone who attempts to function during hockey may know, this is already trouble. Throw in the fact that it's a wonderfully chipper 30 degrees. Wouldn't be so bad if we didn't have that wind, and you've got a barrel of fun. Drunken monkeys handling bandsaws. To combat the 25% capacity, we've made pool sign-ups. For the first draft of this harebrained scheme, it was 1-hour time slots from, say, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. We even set up a kind of reservation website so people could make their own reservations and come to the front desk to get a key. Important note about the resort, it's spread out. So for one of our standalone buildings, you have to walk outside. One that has a pool in it and rooms is about 1.5 blocks away from the front desk. Everything is sprawled because, it's 100 years old. They kind of kept building things and didn't think about how it would necessarily fit together. Lots of people were angry that to swim in the building they were staying in, they had to go a block away to get a key and come back. It's not fun, but you do what you gotta do. Can you imagine how well this went? About as well as my 5th grade science project. Those poor ants. You would have some people that were coming for a weekend away not affiliated with hockey. Book for 5 people, then hockey would book for the other 15 spots. And suddenly you'd have a pool overloaded with 50 people. Chasing out the poor family. You'd have people staying past their time because they forgot or lost track of time. Then our one security guard would catch heat. We even had people filming him trying to get people out of the pool so the next reservation slot could go swim. Screaming that he was horrible for kicking kids out of the pool. Okay, so we revised it, 1.5-hour slots, with a half-hour vacate slot. Instead of 14 pool slots a day per pool, we have 7 for 9 hockey teams. And our other guests, it might have worked, but our main pool went down. Wonderful. It went down on Monday, and we finally got the pool to start filling again on Thursday. The day all the hockey teams were due in, plus 80% weekend. Apparently people want to celebrate President's Day. I'm told I'm an idiot, it's for Valentine's Day, and most people don't work Monday. So this was gonna be fun. Reservations dropped the ball in letting people know to make pool reservations as early as Wednesday. So we had tons of people angry that the pool was booked. The one pool. Then I had people saying they wanted to just use the hot tub in the now filling pool area, no dice. Had people staying at the other management company screaming at us because we couldn't facilitate them. They have access to our main pool and their pools. Unfair. I want to use the curly side one, but no. Okay, pity party over. We tried to be optimistic, making pool reservations for Friday afternoon for the main pool, no dice, so we had to scratch those, which were all teams, and they're pissed to hell that they lost their pool slot. I'm pissed because one of them stole my good clicky pen, and when I demanded it back, the little shit threw it in the water feature. R.I.P. Clicky. Then the next day, we were finally able to open the main pool. It's a little cool, but it temps to an acceptable temperature. One little girl started crying because it was colder than outside, which it was not. But I digress, it may have felt a bit cool. We had kids propping doors open, and one opened the doors from the pool area to the outside to make it fog up in the pool area of the hotel pool. Granted, it did look pretty awesome, but you're messing with my equipment. Had a lady throw my manager under the bus, saying they said it was okay for us to go in the pool and stay late. Honey, you had this pool reservation for your team, you scratched it. My manager is anal about notes. I would have it on here. She broke into the pool, where another team had booked it, and refused to leave when security got there to kick her out. Let's be honest, most of this weekend was a loss revenue-wise. We've given so many discounts, given free meeting rooms, had so many people flat out lying and screaming to us. I'm so tired. Now taking bets on how next weekend will work. We have a 1-hour time slot with a half-hour grace period to GTFO. Hopefully we'll have both security guards on, though the one isn't necessarily the sharpest light bulb in the drawer. He straight up called us to ask who was supposed to be in the pool at one point, then said, "By the way, we have a missing kid." In 30 below temps. Said as blasé, as if you'd asked him if he drank water today. Thankfully, child was found before the end of the call, even though he had been missing for a half hour. Though it's hockey. plus a wedding, plus sitting at 85% capacity. I may need to borrow Buttercup. 3. I'm generally curious, do most hotels just accept pets without notification or a pet fee? By the way these people act, I can only assume this is the case. My hotel doesn't like to take pets, but we've dedicated a few rooms to taking in dogs for $15. But most people have learned that they can lie about having a service animal and get them in for free, because legally they don't have to give you papers to prove it. Why we don't like taking pets? Take last week, for example. We discovered a regular room which had stayed for over a week, snuck in 4 full-size dogs. How they did this without us knowing? It's one simple trick that hotels and pet lovers hate them for. They never left the room. For over a week, these dogs pissed and shat all over the room, mostly on our towels, as they appeared to be locked in the bathroom for the majority of the time. Funnily enough, within the first few nights of their stay, I told the owners that we should remove them. They were lying to people to get them to cover the cost of their room, saying their kids were stranded outside my hotel. When I didn't check them in that night because they were not stranded outside, rather had checked in the day prior and they were already in a room, and not with kids but with fellow drug addicts. The gentleman called and chastised us for kicking them out into the cold. The truth was, they had someone else pay for the next night. He called me later on my shift the next night to ask if I got in trouble for kicking them out in the cold. I'm not trying to get into people's business, so I said, "Look, sir, that didn't happen, and I think if you think about it, you'll figure it out. That's all I'm going to say." Fast forward a week later, the owners heard the dogs in there and kicked them out immediately. One of the many instances of ownership disregarding what I suggest for short-term profit. Look, I get times are tough. But I and multiple other co-workers witnessed them doing drug deals. You had to know this wasn't going to end well. Fast forward to my current pet story. We have 2 pet rooms, both double queens, and a $15 pet fee. As I have the gentleman sign the no smoking, no pets part of the registration, he takes it upon himself to mention the pet for the first time. I attempt to change the room and tell him I must charge a pet fee. For whatever reason, since it was prepaid, it gave me trouble switching the type of room. I tell him to call a third-party reservation service to change the room. While on the phone, he complains to them that it wasn't clear, and to pacify him and get him off the phone, they choose to agree. That's not my style, especially not when people start turning their asshole mode. So after he gets off the phone, I tell him it does say our pet policy on the third-party reservation service. It's on the front page when you book, but I get it. People are on the road, whatever, and they just want to book a room quickly, which is why countless people book for the wrong day. And that is never because they made a mistake. Anyway, I find a way to change it and get him to sign the part about the pet, that we know about the pet, that there's still no smoking. The guy throws a fit. He refuses to sign it because he has a pet and the thing says no pet. I tell him I will sign an addendum to it if it makes him feel better. No one has ever made me do this. My system does a weird thing before night audit. After the room charge has been collected, it will take any charge and try to refund that card instead of charge it. So I tell him we will give him a pet receipt when he checks out. He throws another fit. He's using a different card than the one that he made the reservation and the one he gave me for incidentals. Fine, I say. Put your card in the chip reader. He proceeds to stand around for the next 5 to 10 minutes. I figure the guy is waiting for someone else to show up to pay this $15. To make this process even more hard than it has to be. Finally he says, "How long is this going to take?" I say, "I told you to put your card in the chip reader 5 minutes ago." "Oh, I didn't hear you," he says. "This is bullshit." At this point, I am wishing the guy just snuck the damn pet in instead. He has made the process bullshit. I say to him, "Look, when you made the reservation on the front page, it says pet-friendly rooms can be requested by contacting the property at the number on the booking confirmation." It goes on to say, optional extras. Pets are allowed for an extra charge of USD 15 per pet per day. It's not your fault you didn't read this. He says, "I'm mad at the third-party reservation service, not you." I respond, "I am sorry, sir. Usually when someone yells, 'This is bullshit' to a customer service rep, they're yelling at them." At the end of the day, this is not my hotel's problem, or the third-party reservation problem. That website expressly says you should call the hotel if you want an add-on, which pets are listed as. It says exactly how much. It doesn't say spring this on me after I've already assigned you a room and handed you your keycard. I'm also surprised that the first guy to ever refuse to sign the no smoking, no pet, after I say we know about the pet, and responds by saying, "This is how your company screw people over," is only mad at the third-party reservation service. More likely he was surprised I didn't roll over and die like a good little customer service rep. 4. Last Friday, I checked in a guest named Chad. Right off the bat, we had issues. Firstly, he arrived for check-in at 9 a.m. Now, me being a nice guy, I decided to let him check in. Mistake number 1. I should have remembered the cardinal rule of hospitality. If you give them an inch, they will take a mile. So I start checking him in, and he starts complaining, because I won't match the rate he found on Suxpedia. We don't rate match here. It's ridiculous how often this happens, and I can't help but wonder why people don't just book online if they find a better rate. Like, just book through the site instead of harassing me about it. Anyway, he was quite rude during the entire check-in process, and toward the end, he had me add his girlfriend's name on the reservation as she was arriving the next day. We'll call her Karen, of course. I had the weekend off, and when I came back on Monday, today, I see a list of complaints on the night audit report. Of course, it's from Chad and Karen. Here is the list as they wrote it. Trash in elevator. Front door still not locked at 10 p.m. Kitty litter dumped in parking lot. The rubber on the 10th stair from the first floor to the second is peeling off, and they almost had a serious injury because of it. They seriously complained about this. My manager reads the list also, and we both wonder why they even care about these little things that are totally unrelated to their room. Like, I get it, sometimes there's a piece of plastic on the floor somewhere, or sometimes a disrespectful guest will dump something in the lot. But why do you care so much? We, of course, try to keep the hotel in the best shape we can, but we can't be everywhere all the time. So around 10 a.m., Karen and Chad approach the desk and are asking to speak with the manager. You know where this is going. The manager comes out and they start interrogating him on why he runs his hotel in such a shitty way. Karen takes the lead in this bitch fest, and she starts at a 10 for no reason whatsoever. The manager explains to them that he discussed the issues with the department heads during our daily huddle, and that everything will be taken care of. He even gives them points just for the inconvenience. The conversation ends surprisingly well, and Chad and Karen seem satisfied after getting their daily fix of complaining. Cut to not even an hour later, I'm finishing up a phone call when I see Karen intercepting the manager on his way back to the desk. I hear her say that she's fucking disgusted that we are making a black man pick up the kitty litter in the parking lot. Our maintenance technician is black, and maintenance is in charge of the parking lot cleanliness, among other things. She says, "I can't believe you're making a black man pick up crap in the parking lot with everything going on in this country right now. Especially when you have all these white people inside doing nothing." Yep, she's playing the race card on behalf of somebody else whom she doesn't know. Makes sense. Okay, hold up. I'm literally on the phone making a reservation, and the only reason I can't leave the desk is because I'm constantly dealing with Karens like you, lady. This specific Karen happened to be Hispanic, and her boyfriend, Chad, was black. My manager tried to reason with her, but it was clear she was just fishing for something. She kept calling him racist, and it felt like she wanted him to admit that he was, even though he's not. He started to walk away toward the bathroom, and she followed him, and she was screaming at him now. Out of nowhere, Chad comes around the corner and sandwiches my manager. Now, they're both throwing insults at him and just being A-class douchebags. Eventually, they stopped, but it was really a disgusting sight to see. They're staying here until July 2nd. Dear God help us. 5. I currently work for an upscale hotel that caters primarily to business travelers and people visiting the city for events and sports. After COVID, for obvious reasons, our hotel was in a slump and even closed for a few months. After reopening, we had to lower our rates significantly in order to get people to stay with us. which brings a new type of clientele and a new set of issues to a hotel that is usually booked by people looking for a little luxury. One night, I was acting manager on duty, focusing on paperwork and the lobby area, while my partner would do runs and cleaning. We were suddenly visited by 4 cops without any notice. When I asked them what was going on, one officer said that they had gotten a call from a lady in one of our high-floor themed suites about a domestic issue that involved one of the people in the room shouting and causing an uproar. I followed the officers to the floor, and while walking down the hallway, we were greeted by a young woman who had called the police on her partner. There were a total of 4 women in this room, and they were having a little getaway, all of them romantically involved. The one girl had been drinking too much, and she was being too aggressive. To be specific, she said, "You can hear her from here. We want the..." And then she referred to something a little Dutch boy once put his finger in. "I mean, we're all lesbians, but there's no way you can miss her." Her statement proved to be very accurate. We were all able to hear her yelling at the people still in the room. Since the police were here, I chose to stay out of the room and just monitor the situation as a just-in-case. She began to shout at the cops about what bitches they are, and that they had her car keys. Apparently the situation came up because she was having trouble finding her keys, and began to accuse her friends of stealing them. The cops demanded her to leave after denials of having her keys and no keys being found immediately. At this point, she exited the room, and I got a clear look at her. She was wearing a t-shirt, sweatpants, and steel-toed work boots with short blonde hair. She began walking down the hall, and then turned to me and said, "Don't you dare fucking follow me!" Well, naturally, I followed her, and the police began following both of us about the time she made it to the elevator. She pressed the button for the elevator, and as the police got near, she suddenly sprinted down the opposite hallway. Our elevator is in the middle of 2 connecting hallways. The one cop asked what was down that hallway, and I told them that there was a set of stairs down there that she might take. I heard the door to the stairwell open just as the elevator arrived, and all 4 police opted to get into the elevator. I was completely gobsmacked that not a single officer decided to follow her just in case she got off on a different floor and doubled back. Instead of having an officer stay on the floor, one follow her and the rest wait for her downstairs. They all jumped on the elevator to cut her off at the lobby. Unfortunately, our stairwells do not directly lead all the way down to the first floor, so I chased after her in order to make sure she wouldn't cause more problems. I followed her down several flights of stairs, listening for a door in case she left the stairwell. Sure enough, with a few flights ahead of me, I heard the door open and close. I wasn't sure which floor she had gotten off on, but I took a guess based on where I thought the door opened, and I heard the elevator down the hall open. I had guessed right, and I was able to sprint down the hall and catch up to the elevator before it closed. I'm a rather big guy, so I felt rather accomplished by that feat. Upon seeing me again, she began to cry and complain about how scummy people can be. I told her that I understand, but that unfortunately, she did have to leave for the night, as she was not the person on file for the room, and the police were already involved. I did offer to get her a bottle of water because despite the attitude and everything to this point, I do try to maintain a professional status. She refused, and police escorted her outside. At this point, I thought that was the end of it and everything was settled. Unfortunately, this was only the beginning. About 5 minutes had passed since she was escorted off the property by the 4 police officers. In the meantime, I was explaining to my co-worker that night what had happened since I was not able to explain everything over the radio. About the time when I had finished explaining all that had happened, the sliding doors of the entrance opened up, and sure enough, she had returned. In case you're curious, we are generally a property that does lock its doors at night. However, as coincidences happen, the door lock was not functioning properly that night, and we had to either manually open the door for guest arrivals, or we could just leave the door unlocked. We unlocked the door for the police after arrival in order to allow for ease of entrance and exit, and had not yet locked the door again. She immediately came up to me at the front desk and demanded to be let back into the room to get her car keys. I told her that she would not be allowed up there, that she had already been escorted off the property, and that at this point she was not welcome in the hotel. She became gradually more irate as we continued back and forth about how she needs her keys in order to drive her car home. and how I said that she had the opportunity to get them when the officers were up there with her, but she refused and they demanded she leave the hotel. After several rounds of trying to get her to leave, I told my co-worker, who had also been trying to keep the situation calm and get her to leave, to go to the back office and call the cops again, while I continue our conversation. At this point, she began to berate me and also began to make up stories such as, "I know you can call up to the room and demand them to give me my keys. I work in a hotel as well. I know you can do all that." When she said that, I said, "If you do in fact work for a hotel, then you know very well that I am not able to contact the room at this time, and you are wasting both of our times for nothing." I told her that we can take a look for the keys again after the guests leave, but in the meantime, she would have to call someone to pick her up, or I could call her a taxi if it was just a question of transportation. She became upset about how she would pay for it, but I told her that was not my problem as she was already unwelcome on the property, and that she would leave before the police arrive again, since they would be rather unhappy to deal with the same person causing issues again. By this time, my co-worker had returned to the front desk. He said the cops were on their way, but now it was just a matter of time before they would arrive, and all we had to do was either wait for them or get her to leave before they arrived. Because she had not gotten anywhere with crying, sob stories, being aggressive or telling lies, she finally opted to play her last card. She began to insult both myself and the hotel in general as being a glorified motel. She took note of me being a big guy, saying how I must get off being a fat fuck in charge of bossing people around. I told her that sometimes that is a perk of the job, and again demanded she leave. Finally, in desperation, after 15 minutes of going back and forth with no headway, she tried to run for the elevator. Well, as she found out, despite my size, I can move fast when I want to. I sprinted in front of her and body-blocked her at the elevators. Seeing that she could not physically get past me, she again continued to berate me, and left the hotel in frustration when nothing she did worked. I watched her leave, collected my temper, and locked the door. I told my co-worker she will probably be back shortly since she just went over to the parking garage across the street. This time, we will keep her out of the hotel. If she wants to argue again in the vestibule as we wait for the cops again, that is her choice, but if she is smart, she will finally just leave. Well, another 5 minutes go by and she does in fact return, ringing the doorbell to be let in. I walk out to the vestibule and tell her that the police are bound to be here momentarily, and that there is no way she is getting into the hotel again. She begins crying and trying to beg for her keys again, perhaps thinking that I am just playing some sick game of keeping them away from her. I again tell her no and leave. But it was now too late for her, as the same cops who had been here before again pulled up in front of the hotel. As a couple of them enter the vestibule and ask what is going on now, she yells at them for her keys and immediately gets told, "Yell at me one more time and I guarantee that you will get a free ride in the back of my squad car tonight to jail." They force her to exit while I explain that I just want her off the property, and not to return tonight. After a brief talk with police, I returned into the hotel and watched a little from inside what had happened. She ended up being put in handcuffs and taken away in the officer's squad car. Finally, after over an hour, everything was finally calm again. For the epilogue to this grand saga, she did in fact return one more time during daylight hours to again demand her keys. Her friends had already exited, so housekeeping went in and did search the room. They did actually find her car keys in the bottom drawer of the armoire. We believe her friends hid her keys from her after she drank too much in order to prevent her from drunk driving, but forgot after drinking as well, so they decided they just wanted her gone and did not care. I hope you all enjoyed this tale. I've been in hospitality and retail for many years, and I have many tales I can tell you about a variety of things that I have dealt with. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Coahw, episode 55. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. I would also like to give a shout out to the author of the final story, actually. About the drunk lady and the missing car keys. Pretty sad tale all around. Well, Frustrating for the MOD, of course. But, yeah, just sad. You know, when people get themselves into that state, they get so bloody drunk. I mean, it was kind of obvious from the get-go that her friends had hid her keys to keep her safe, but then they kind of turned into poopy heads themselves. I wonder how that shook out when everybody sobered up. I wonder if they were still friends, or even partners afterwards, because I think one of the women was her girlfriend. We'll add that to the many reasons why I personally just have no interest in drinking. Okay, yes, as I was saying, shout out to the author of that story, who is Mr. Sauceboss89 on Reddit. Thank you very much, Mr. Sauceboss89. Your story was greatly appreciated. Okay, and with that, I think I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.